hour to go. Okay. Hello. Hello.
Oh, how
Hello.
this? Oh, sorry.
Welcome to the arena. As you can tell, we play games. We try to have some fun. I'm Eric Kirsting, Plan H PhD student at UW Milwaukee.
I'm Dave Stanley, also Plan H PhD student in the Media, Cinema, and Digital Studies, which is what Plan H means.
Haha. I'm Janelle Malgon, also in the same plan, PhD student. Hello.
I'm Daniel. I'm a fan of the show, visiting scholar from Brazil. Yeah.
And resident cool dude.
I prefer
Correct.
friend of the show more than fan. Fan implies that you're separate, but friend implies that you're included.
It's true. Fan
Series
advisor just
regular.
suspects
I'm
me.
trying to,
Yeah.
to come up
Enough
with
talk.
a word.
Fight.
Oh god.
Ooh,
Ah,
Ice climbers.
Inklings. Oh my god.
Oh, this is beautiful. Super Mario Maker level. So don't fall off the cliff, Janelle. That's my first. It's like Mario where if you.
What did these percentages mean?
That's
So the higher
how
your percent,
easy it is.
the more you fly when you get hit.
Oh, no. Bye.
Oh my god.
Oh, there's a mushroom there.
I just eat it?
Yeah, you did. If you press down after you eat somebody, you'll copy their powers.
What?
Yeah, you're Kirby.
It's-
Oh, I need to get more ink. How do you do this? Do you taunt down or something? Oh, it's right and then taunt. Oh wait, no. Like that parry. Oh yeah, shield and then B, that's how you do it. You can do it, Janelle. You can fly back.
So close.
So if you press up and B, oh yeah, you're dead now. But maybe we'll go into training for a sec to help get you
Is
able
that
to
a thing?
use the training. Yeah, there's a training mode.
Oh, that's helpful.
At least I've done it before the show.
Eat it, Daniel. Eat it. Eat it, boys.
Ah,
Is this a fake one?
no. This is the real one.
Ouch!
Oh. Oh no.
So whoever gets that smash ball is gonna be feeling pretty good. Oh, it left?
Yep.
We're incompetent enough to not like. Oh!
Oh, that
Thank you, Eric.
I
Saved me.
hurt myself.
Well, I'm done for. And to no one's great surprise, Eric and Daniel are left playing.
Right, exactly.
Don't stand there.
Thanks for the heads up.
You're welcome. That's safe on shield, by the way. Ooh, right shoe. Get in it.
This is a weird high shoe, like.
Is that right? That looks like,
Yeah.
Oh
my God.
What's his name?
Oh! Oh my. Really?
Yeah, that was Dedenne. He just looks like Raichu. See?
That's cute.
Or one of the other.
I thought you were saying that was like degenerate.
No, Dedenne, the name of the Pokemon.
I can float now. I never play with items on, so this is kind of really novel to me. I don't know what any of these things do.
Oh, you hardcore boys.
It's not. I like. Shoot. Oh, I got it.
Really?
I still
All
can
right.
float.
I reserve
Oh.
I reserve one thing at the very end of today. Whichever two of us we think have the best record, which I suspect will be the two.
Oh!
Guaranteed.
We need to do no items, Fox only, Final Destination.
That's more of a melee thing.
Yeah, I know it's a melee thing. It's a meme.
Oh shoot!
Oh no! Ah!
Give me this mushroom. All right. If you hit somebody while they're healing, they stop healing. So like
That's
twice
good
I've grabbed the. Ouch! Who laid that? Was it you?
God, how are the percentages so low?
Because they just dodge each other. They know how to use the shield and. You saw Eric there
Yeah.
use the shield to block an attack. Like they know how to like actually play the game.
That isn't just like, get away from me.
Right. that isn't
Oh
just-
no! Really? Oh!
Oh man,
Really?
We're gonna do this for
Fighting
Fighter
games
Labs.
means that Daniel
I'm
is gonna be
shaking here.
he's gonna stand the whole time.
Oh!
Oh
That
man.
was really fun.
Yeah, it was amazing. Like
So.
super great.
You have to press A through the menu.
I love this game so much, man. Like, oh.
Alright, so can I get a quick tutorial on what these buttons do?
Yes.
That is more than
What's
just
happening?
like, yeah, like, can someone just tell me what's going on?
Go ahead and we're gonna go to training. Actually, let's just stay on fun and nobody
Yeah.
will fight for the first little bit.
I don't know if I can.
You
If I
can
can help us. No, I'm joking.
can.
I'm joking,
I
I'm
believe
joking.
in you.
Alright.
That was why. You weren't on KK Daniel before. Or maybe you were.
Yeah,
No,
I
he
was.
was.
He just was player 5 instead of player 4.
Alright.
There you go.
So
That's what it was.
alright, so the first thing to note is the two shoulder buttons are shield.
These two?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, almost
The
all
other two
Pokemon.
shoulder buttons are grab.
Okay.
You can also grab by pressing shield and A, but that's my
No, please. Goodbye.
oh wait.
They completely resorted the who we are. So I'm Janelle's
Oh, that
tag
makes a
now
lot of
be-
sense.
oh.
because it swapped to the players.
Alright. This is still we're just trying to teach Janelle
Yeah,
the
it's fine.
basics. So A will do like your basic attacks.
Okay.
If you do like up in A, or down in A, or side in A, like you'll do either a smash attack if you smash it like this, or if you just tilt it, you'll do a tilt attack.
Okay.
You can also do smash attacks by using the C stick or whatever the right stick. If you just move it around, you'll do a smash attack. The most important thing probably for you right now is learning the B moves. So B moves are like your character's specials. So like they're like the unique ones. So yeah, you're doing the Bs right now. I assume you're Admiral, right?
Yeah.
So your down B there is a cancel, but the most important B move to know is your up B, because that's actually
I
your
see
third
that,
jump.
yeah.
So you have 1, 2, 3 jumps.
Wait, Janelle is Admiral?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for this,
It
all of
published
our names got mixed.
Well, just
Okay.
you two actually. I'm
Oh.
me.
Yeah.
Okay, so just me and
And to pick up an item, you press
Uh-huh.
A, and if you're holding an item, you have to press A to throw that item. So that's like a gist. You're actually playing like a really
What?
like. My recommendations for like someone who's really new is like Mario or one of the sword characters are all pretty relatively easy. If you're playing a sword character right now, like not easy, like they're just
Sure.
like they're. You're not gonna be like sitting here thinking like, what happens when I charge this up? What happens
Sure.
when YouTube presses this side B?
And this
Thanks,
is like,
Dave.
Honestly,
welcome.
true.
yeah, like when that ball thing appears, you should go for
You
it.
should just,
Yeah,
okay.
punch it. Just try to
Just
kill
punch
it.
it.
All right. Now that we got a little bit more of a primer in the rules, we'll kill each other and then we'll get to the next
It's
team.
okay. Can we like
Yep,
go
go
for it?
ahead.
honestly, the thing to know, I think you'll find that's going to be the hardest to initially learn is map placement and figuring out like,
Yeah.
who you are and where you are and how to track yourself and keep track
Right.
of where you're going and what you're doing. That is the thing that I have always struggled with and find most difficult.
Yeah, there is a lot going on.
Oh, you can't shield that anymore.
You
I had no stocks left. Thanks a lot.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And for the only time today, Eric is out of a match before.
It was strategic.
I don't mind it. I don't mind it. It's fun. So yeah, I think Dave actually for one of our first kind of more discussion points is what do you look at while you're playing Smash? Now I think that there's like it's interesting on quite a few different conceptual levels. For one, when I'm playing in a group of 4 like this, I'm always just looking at myself, right? I just gotta like keep my eye on me because so much is going on. I need to find myself in the chaos
Nice.
and the mess, right? And then everything else is kind of happening in my peripheral vision. But Daniel, I'm sure you're aware of this as somebody who's played quite a bit of fighting games. When you're playing a 1v1 against somebody, who are you looking at?
I can't answer now. I'm trying to kill people.
Right.
Yeah, like yeah.
Alright, that was a better control at least.
I'll just say, from my experience, when I'm playing like Street Fighter 1v1 or Smash 1v1, I'm always looking at the other player way more than me, and I'm in my peripheral, like my character is in the peripheral.
Nice. Oh, I'm playing against Dave. It's not Janelle.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was like trying to be more reasonable, but like
He was taking it easy on me. He was taking it easy on me. Thank you, Daniel. I really appreciate that.
because it was Jan like there, the name. I
We'll
was
swap this time, and
Yeah.
you can destroy me with the fury of 1,000
Yeah,
suns.
like
There you
I'm
go.
not looking at my character usually in fighting games because when I have control, I can like I know where my character is, and when like just my inputs tell me what I need to know about the character. You know what I mean? Like so for me, it's I'm concerned about like the other in Smash is particular because like if you're playing this like the regular mode of like the okay I'm gonna try Joker. You have to be mindful of the stage as well. Like in other fighting games, that's not a concern as it is in Smash. You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that goes into what we define Smash. So Smash is obviously a fighting game. I don't think anyone's going to say like it's not a fighting game. Like there's some people who might be like super purists and be like it's not a fighting game. You know, your B moves are really wicked, by the way, Janelle. Like they're all like long range projectiles.
I see that.
Those are your A moves right now, but you'll get there.
Oh, I have the persona. Nice.
Oh, darn it.
Hurry, banana! Hurry, banana!
Stay away from him. It will.
Get him, Shovel Knight.
Really?
Get out of here.
Nice.
I can't believe that didn't even kill. Oh gosh, Ryu sucks.
Would
It's
you like
Cam.
some pound cake?
Why are all the racers only Shy Guys? I think it's because if Mario was also racing on the track and you were playing as Mario, you'd be confused, right?
Yeah, because that never happens on any of these stages.
Oh, I jumped into that. I want the food. Give me that pineapple and that milk. I'll take all of it.
Damn, get away from me.
Who's my new friend here? Pokeball. Who's this? Who's this little friend?
That's the Hammer Bro from Mario.
No, my friend, the Pokemon. I
Oh, the
summon.
Pokemon? Yeah, who knows?
Ooh!
Ah.
So Janelle, oh yeah, so okay, so this is called a platform fighter. What that means is that there's a lot more of an emphasis on movement,
Right.
because as opposed to did you see how I flew that into the bumper? That was pretty wicked.
Oh,
you're
no!
he's gonna get it. Oh, he didn't get it.
So what is that thing that's floating around now?
It's
That's
the
the smash ball.
Yeah, if you break the smash ball, you can perform basically your
It's called
ultimate
a
attack.
final smash.
Okay. Is it the only way to perform an
Oh
ultimate?
gosh, no. I got out of the way. Thank goodness.
oh I love this so much. It's so great.
Wow.
So that's from Persona.
Persona 5 is the best
Okay.
Persona by far.
That is objectively wrong.
It's
Persona
the only
5
one that I've played,
Look,
so
look at me.
Persona
I'm
5
on
is
my
the
jetpack
horniest
here.
Persona
Yes,
game,
that's good. Stay away
Oh.
from everything.
but it is not better than Persona 4 by any measurable metric.
yeah. But it's like, okay, I'm just joking because I've only played like, Persona 5, so that's my.
One of the things that as you play more games with me, you'll learn is that I'm an excellent multitasker. So I'm very good at nuanced, complicated.
Go
arguments
fire Pokemon.
Oh.
in the middle of playing video games.
That is not really a skill.
I want this trophy. Oh god, what is that?
Dr. Wily, get him, Dr. Wily.
Mega Man bullshit.
Really?
I can do that.
I'm just sitting over here at the side of the screen, just being like, okay, so I just want to avoid these fireballs. Okay, that's me, Terry versus Ryu. Only could happen.
Versus Ken.
Yeah, you are Ken, by the way. That's
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
Stanley, you are aware of like how Terry's supers work? Like
No, I've never played it before.
when you are up 100%, you can perform like a special attack.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
How did one do that?
No, but that's
That's just for that character.
yeah, that's for that.
Yeah,
character.
super.
Does every character have a super?
No.
Okay.
Only the character. Okay, so one thing to note is, like we talked about a little bit last week, Smash tries to streamline the fighting game formula a little bit. So one of those things is that there are no besides with Terry, Ryu, and Ken, because they're from actual fighting games. They're from like more traditional fighting games. They have special input attacks like in those games. But otherwise, for instance, there's no like right down.
There's snake out.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, my favorite.
There's no like right down, right B kind of thing, or something that's like, so like special moves that you have to like do like timed inputs to do. Instead, like side B is always gonna be is a thing. Down B is a thing. Up B is your special. Like your specials are all very easy to perform.
But what's amazing about Smash is that like every character is almost like a different game. You know what I mean? Like they are so they have so much depth. It's crazy.
They really try to take inspiration from the games that they're from.
Except for like the Echo Fighters.
Yeah, the Echo Fighters are they're pretty. An Echo Fighter in this game, what that refers to now, is like Fox and Falco to a lesser degree, but
Captain Falcon and
Mario and
Ganondorf.
Luigi have very similar movesets, right? Because they're Mario and Luigi. What are you gonna do?
Makes sense.
Thanks, Janelle.
Hello.
Oh my god, I'm.
Goodbye, Steve. Goodbye.
Oh. Oh my god, I hate this fire thing so much.
I'm sitting here trying to throw bombs at the Smash Ball.
Oh, no!
I was forcing the wrong way. That's okay. I just wanted to make sure none of you got it.
Nice.
It's very common when you're playing Smash, Janelle, with like other people in like a free-for-all like this, to like gang up on whoever has like the most stocks. Like right now I have 3 stocks. Oh shit.
No, man, come on. No,
Wow.
Jeez.
I thank you for that, I guess.
Yep, I'm just trying to ensure victory.
He's here to facilitate.
Yep, just here to facilitate. Make sure Eric wins. That's why they call me Troll.
The bomb, Janelle. Take the bomb. Oh.
Oh, it blew me up too. You dropped the bomb and then. What is that? Oh. Are you? I thought my LP was.
Do you like my missiles in there? I thought that was working pretty well.
Oh man, you could work for the like CIA, you know, like drone,
Exactly the point.
like
I don't need it.
you're doing it on purpose. Like
No, the first one wasn't. The second
Okay.
one was. I didn't feel. You know, you guys are at 1. I'm at 2. I don't feel the need to like eliminate somebody from the game like that. I don't know. It's, you know, I want to
okay,
have fun.
Sakurai.
I don't know. Okay, Sakurai shouldn't be an insult. Like wanting to have fun with your friends is a good
Okay,
thing.
Sakurai is like okay boomer for us. You know. Nice.
All right, so now let's just get him.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, gang up on me, please. It'll be all the more sweet when I win.
Oh wow.
Oh, the scythe. I mean, you have a sword already. Why do you need another weapon?
Okay, mister.
Oh.
Bye.
This is something that I love about Smash Ultimate, like this close up when you have like the final hit.
Do we want to try to move into a more competitive sense? We'll just play teams because teams is a legitimate form of competition for Smash.
Oh, we could like go. How long have we been playing? Like maybe
5
like a
minutes.
couple
We
more
got time.
matches.
A couple more free for alls. You want
Yeah,
to do?
yeah,
Alright.
that was fun.
There's a large cast of characters.
I do like that. Yeah.
It's like 70 something. It's a lot.
I'm following the straight from last week and just like.
Ooh, yes.
One of the things I find interesting about this is one of the best levels in the whole game. We're gonna have some fun. So do you know WarioWare, Janelle?
Do I know what now?
WarioWare.
I don't.
All right, so WarioWare is a game from the. It's a really interesting. It's a game from the 2000s.
Oh, I love WarioWare.
And it's like a mini game. So like it's just a bunch of mini games, and they're all like a couple seconds long. And this map is like this a chisel. So we have a couple seconds. So I'll take a penalty if we don't chisel that away. We didn't do it, so now we all got hit with
Oh my
stuff.
god.
Now we don't move. So in that case, everyone who didn't move became big. And then there'll be another mini, and then so you just keep doing different mini games. Ouch! Whoa, I'm already down to my last stop.
Oh, me too. Like.
Map is so small. Look out! Oh, okay, watch out for the foot.
I saw it way too late.
Stay dry. Where's the umbrella? Where's the umbrella?
No.
Oh.
What is happening?
Bayonetta special
Ah.
where she.
Oh, I'm getting eaten by some dragon.
Gnarly.
This has been a really quick taunt. Neither of you got it. So, one of the interesting things about Smash is that, like I said, it's got the designation of a platform fighter, but there are no platform fighters that I'm aware of that are not clones of Smash Brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
For
it's
sure.
kind of funny that it gets this designation as its own particular kind of genre.
Oh. Nice.
Because
Well, it was a quick.
occupies a
match.
very unique space within the fighting game landscape, right? It really turns a lot of the traditional rules of fighting games on their heads.
Absolutely.
For, key of which is randomness, right? There's no randomness really in Street Fighter or King of Fighters or anything. But there's obviously lots of zany random things that happen in a game Smash.
Oh. Yeah, I'm gonna go old school.
So yeah, Janelle, you could just you're like, I like Link, I play Link. And you got 2 Links, and 2 question marks.
What will it be?
Oh,
I
Sam
hate
is.
Meta Knight.
But his OP is fun.
Sam? Who is OP?
Meta Knight.
He was an OP in Brawl.
Okay.
So here we're in a house. So a lot of these platforms you can go down Janelle just by pressing down while on them.
Okay.
Not all of them, but if they're kind of thin like this, that's a good rule of thumb.
Really? You're gonna... Oh man, you did a sick confirmation there.
Oh, thanks. Oh, like we're all fighting at like the very top of the house.
Yeah.
Ah.
I like jumping directly into attacks. It's just
Something
kinda,
I do all the
kind of what I
time.
do.
Oh god,
Really? Nice. I just won't get away from Eric. Really? Oh!
Oh, that thing's dangerous. I gotta kill that guy. He's super dangerous. He'll just kill everybody. Everybody who isn't Daniel. Oh, he fell off the cliff. Thank you. Oh no, he's back!
Oh, 0.
Go 0. Oh!
Can he leave now? Thank you.
He killed me and took one of Eric's stock. That was,
He did a better job than I did the whole game. Yeah, playing free for alls, you have to be mindful of the items because like they make a big difference. Nice.
I'm trying to think. Alright.
This is your first time, Janelle, playing Smash Up.
Yeah.
What do you think so far?
I really like it.
It's crazy, right? Let me see.
I think you can see Janelle pretty quickly. With kind of what we were talking about last week, with like the barrier entry, and then thinking of Sakurai as creating the original Smash 64
yeah.
as being
absolutely.
like lowering that barrier of entry by
Yeah,
like
this is way more
leagues.
accessible. Even though there's a lot more going on, it's far more accessible than something like Street Fighter or any traditional fighter.
Which is why there's like this weird pull in the community
Hero.
because this is a
Hero's
competitive.
nice.
So what's weird is that this is a game people play. Oh my!
Oh!
No!
Wow, this is very. This is
I hate this map. One thing, if you press shield on the air, you can air dodge.
I'm going for Dave.
I guess I'll go for Janelle.
Goodbye.
Don't worry, it's hard to die because it's so big. Ooh, nice kind of combo there.
No.
Janelle just did like a 3-hit combo on me. Arrow into a sword.
Ooh.
Nice. Ooh.
Don't break that one. See that one that... Ah, darn it. So Jigglypuff is a thing where she can put people to sleep.
Oh no.
When you get put to sleep, spin the control stick like this.
Oh, okay.
And like basically it just registers inputs, and that's the best way to get a bunch of inputs fast.
Okay.
Gotcha! I hit someone with a rest. I feel great. Dana, come kill me.
I'm saving it.
I'm gonna kill you before you can use it. If you don't.
Oh, really?
I don't know why you were saving it. I was confused.
Come back.
Oh, it has
Alright.
like a huge
I'm gonna
like.
go fight Dave because he's the only person I haven't hurt much.
You hurt me in my soul.
Nice.
This is a great map for Janelle to like kind of learn like movement and stuff.
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree.
Like, you can just run around and make the screen bigger and bigger. So one thing I want to talk about is, so like one of the interesting things, so like you know how we were talking last week and you wrote about in the archive about discussing different like kind of character types, right? And different like styles of play to some degree.
Yeah.
Like you particularly, we were talking about like grapplers and things of that nature. There are no grapplers in this game, but there are definitely a lot of different archetypes. For instance, on the screen right now, we can see, we actually have 3 different archetypes here. We have a projectile character, which is Youngling, because almost all of the Youngling specials, or 3 of his 4 specials, are moves with a very long range, and he's got a grappling hook. We have a floaty. What a floaty means is it's a character who floats, obviously, but has multiple jumps, more than 2. Like, say I can just keep jumping around as Jigglypuff. She doesn't have infinite, but she's got, like, so many. And then we've got Terry, who's, like, a fighting game character. And so, like, they have, like, their own unique, like, twists on the game's formula. For instance, Terry's, like, almost always going to be facing his opponents. I deserve that.
Yeah, you were at like 170%.
Well, I went for the rest on you.
No.
You unkind bastard.
That's,
What?
and then we've got Hero, who's a swordie, who like, you know, and Link has a sword too, but most of his moves don't use the sword. But also, I guess he's kind of a projectile character. A lot of the newer characters have blurred the line.
Damn. Yeah.
The struggle.
Oh god, the struggle's real.
Oh,
Come down here.
nice.
I love like the combos when somebody like hits you into somebody else.
Oh my god, it's so fucking small. Like,
Nice, Janelle. Good combo. I remember when I was like in 6th grade and I played this game a lot with my friends. Jigglypuff was one of my favorite characters to play because I could do this rollout attack where she just like starts spinning. And you just go hit somebody and then you go, okay, now time to spin again.
oh my god.
Pretty good with Hero, Dave.
Thanks, it's my 2nd time. / hashtag humble brag.
What's interesting is like that this is a game with so many different characters, right? But at the same time, because the controls are so unified between them, it's a lot easier to like pick up. Like think about when we played Street Fighter last week. It felt very difficult to pick up a new character, right?
It absolutely did.
Because
yeah.
like you had to learn. There's so much more to learn than just they move and what their abilities are, but there's also how to do those abilities, what things combo into each other. A lot of those things are just less important.
What's going on over in chat there?
It is.
Oh!
Go Jigglypuff, hit him with the rest. All right, for that person, whatever their name is, I will try to get Dave with the rest here.
Do it for the chat.
Yes! Oh no!
But I'm not out. I'm not out.
The rest normally is a KO move on any map, but I just rested for no reason.
Oh, no, look at
Yeah.
like heroes thing.
I did hit a
That is
rest.
like the MP
Yeah.
bar. Like
Okay.
different characters have different like mechanics, like
Okay.
depending-
All right.
And that's why
Yes,
this game is
1,000-year
crazy because you
game.
have like a million different characters, and a
Uh-huh.
lot of them have like different mechanics, like very specific mechanics, you know.
Right.
So it's super like
Mhm.
hard to like master everything
Mhm.
because like there's like a lot of like depth.
Yeah. Absolutely.
What's crazy about this game is that I think that it kind of has what we might call like a matchup snafu, which is like let's look at this. Like let's say there's 70 characters, and I only play Captain Falcon. I have to
Yes.
know 69 matchups.
Yeah. That's
And
true.
the thing about Smash that makes it even trickier is when we saw Street Fighter last week, if I knew a combo with Sakura, I could do that combo on anyone in the cast.
Mhm.
In Smash, that's not the case because some characters are lighter and heavier than others, and the more damage they take, the further they go back. So you have to
Makes
learn
sense.
different combos
Yeah.
for the different percents on most of the cast. So you have to know on like lightweight characters
That's a lot.
what your combos are going to be.
It's a knowledge-intensive game.
Which is so interesting because it makes it very accessible to like just kind of start playing,
Mhm.
but there is.
Oh shit!
Oh boy.
Oh, I got one of my mains. What's going on?
Oh.
Shadow.
Chaos control.
Do not appreciate being frozen. Thanks.
You don't like it, dirty.
I don't like it.
I don't like it. It's not been once.
Nice. Oh, this mesh.
So I say, since we're playing stock, let's institute an idea.
Oh,
I want to go away from here.
Whoever is
I just kill.
Oh, I was caught in the middle. Shit.
You want to institute something?
whoever goes out first looks at chat.
Chat's not
Very-
moving too
very
fast, but I
good.
think whoever goes up first has to maintain the conversation and talk about
Yes,
something they find
yeah.
interesting.
Okay. So I just
Whoa!
Alright, so-
Home run.
Oh no, we're not out.
That was a
I'm out.
double,
I'm
Herbie.
out. Cloud, it's not as easy to play. It's not easy to pick up, which is part of the problem. And so I agree with you about the sort of matchup soup that this game has.
What? Daniel, what?
Now I
He
think
summoned a
that,
legendary Pokemon.
yeah, items also like part of the reason that items are always turned off in higher level play is because they just add too much variability
And
and,
we've
of
got the
course
fucking
fun
Black
to the
Knight.
game.
Right.
Jeez.
Items make the game actually entertaining instead of just
What am I supposed to do
a
right
giant
now?
fest.
There's like
Just a giant fest of like.
Just
skill,
stay still
or
so I
guess,
can like finish the
Maybe
job.
give
I'm
you
waiting
more
for the
traditional
Black
fight
Knight to
mechanic.
leave.
Yeah. So the problem I have with Smash is that I don't think Smash has the. Part of the reason that I don't particularly like I don't watch Smash as a
Relay
fighting game
so
is
slow.
because Smash doesn't have the individual player complexity that individual games do. It's so movement based, which means
Oh,
that
I clicked on that,
effectively.
sorry.
Why would you describe that as not being complex?
Because I don't think it's individually complex. Individual characters are not nearly as complex as other fighting games, and so it entirely just becomes who can
Both Daniel and
use
I are
their,
like,
use their 600-year-old GameCube controller to execute the movement combos in like.
But
3
that's not the thing. It's not like because every character moves so differently.
yeah, they all have
Yeah, but
different
everybody
speeds.
just plays the meta means that there's 3 characters anybody plays.
I think you're thinking about Melee. In this game,
Melee's the only Smash game that's come close to being a real fighting game.
What?
Wow!
Because
Sorry,
Melee's the only
Sorry,
game
so
with
the
levels.
door is over there.
I will go. Melee's the only game that's come close enough because it's the only one that has individual complexity to that degree.
There is individual complexity in this game. Like 1v1 me, bro. Not
So you can kick my ass?
No,
I
no,
wouldn't think. I wouldn't play you in Street Fighter
I'm just
either.
joking. I'm not that.
I
good.
know,
I'm not
I
good
know.
at Street Fighter,
I know what
and
you
I'm
do.
only okay at this. It's more. I find that an interesting.
When I watch,
You're making high valued of comments. It's kind of. I find that kind of interesting, rather than like speaking of it more from like what you enjoy and don't enjoy about games.
well, so and I'm going to caveat that. I was literally about to say, I enjoy watching fighting games that demonstrate individual, what I would consider combo-oriented mastery and execution of game commands, chaining, and that kind of thing. I don't know enough about most combo games to be able to most fighting games to be able to really appreciate the complexity of the skill it takes to execute those things, and they look interesting. For Smash, especially high competitive Smash, it just, because we turn off all the things that make the game interesting to play from an individual perspective for me, like items, like, smashes, like most things that make give the game any variability at all, it's then just trying to copy the experience.
That's
of
so
high
weird to
complexity.
me to describe it as the only things that can make any variability. The things that make the variability are the decisions of the other person.
But
right?
in Smash, the characters are so uncomplicated that the decision
What do you
making
mean?
is
They're
so
not
limited.
uncomplicated. They're as complicated as fighting game characters in other games.
They have 3.5 moves if you're lucky.
What?
Yeah,
Okay,
but
okay.
like-
I'm gonna hit you now with every move.
That
Okay,
was
okay.
a hyperbole
Okay.
statement. I
Why?
recognize the fact that
You
that
have
wasn't
4.
true.
Okay, let me tell you. You see 4 arrows. You have 4 specials. You have,
Yeah,
you have 4
tilts,
tilts,
back
you have
tilts,
4
neutral
smash
tilts,
attacks.
like
That's that, most characters have like 20 moves. What? That's quite a bit. If we're comparing it to Street Fighter, where there's specials, yes, you have 6 times plus 6 plus 6. So you have 18 and then
Just
specials.
press B.
So they're relatively the same. Yeah, just press B to down.
Like, without a direction, just flat B. There you go.
Unfortunately,
That was what you do. That's how you do your finals.
Okay, good to know.
When you're all glowy like that.
Yes.
I just find it interesting that you're like, I guess I find it more interesting that you're speaking less from like a perspective of like what I value in these things, and at
And
times
what are
you're
your
kind of more
choices?
speaking from a perspective of like, this is what a fighting game is or isn't.
Oh, and I don't feel the need to constantly caveat the fact that this is entirely from my perspective while we're having this conversation, just because, like, if I do, we're obviously having an academic debate, but that I clearly am stemming from my own personal opinion. Like, I have no, like, ideas what to back it up. When I make an evaluative statement about what a fighting game is, I'm clearly coming at it from my own perspective.
And I think that's totally fair. So like, okay, so I'm out. So I'll step in here. I don't know. I don't know that I agree with the idea that the individual characters are not complex. And that may be because I'm learning the mechanics now as opposed to like having played this before and understanding the mechanics of certain characters. But I don't necessarily feel that, for example, you have 2 primary hit controls, A and B, and for
go
every
down there.
character,
No!
the production of that button is different.
Right.
And they all have totally different applications. So while
Oh,
maybe,
it was
like, here's my
it was
power
yours?
button,
Right.
what you do as a specific character is completely different.
That's just it's
And that's
the
why I think that
Pokemon.
it does have complexity, even if it's not necessarily the kind of like inaccessible complexity of something like Street Fighter or
Okay.
Fighters or something.
And that brings me to my next point. Part of the way that I gauge complexity is through skill expression. To me, skill expression in Smash is the kind of thing that,
Oh, you got it.
that doesn't feel like
thanks God, the thing
This-
like
it doesn't feel
you
the
is one
same
of the
as
characters
skill
that
expression
turns
you run into
automatically.
in a game like Fighters or a game like Street Fighter.
Yes.
And so I do not personally value it to the same degree, which judges my ability to enjoy watching it as a competitive engagement. I do not have
What?
the affective response
Everything's reversed. Just go back.
to Smash that I do
There we
to
go,
other
back.
fighting games because of the way skill expression manifests.
Okay, and I think that as a spectator, that's totally fair, right?
Right. Which is, by the way, what I have been, whether I have been expressing myself well or not, has been my intention from the beginning to communicate.
So as opposed to as a player, it's really you're talking
Yeah.
about here.
As a player, I'm just not good at the game, and therefore, like, and I have never found a
What
way
is this that I
to
have?
make my skill expression match the desire I have to be as good at the game as I want to
Sure.
be, and as a result, I find it frustrating to play.
Mm-hmm.
Comparatively to traditional fighting games, where I at least understand why I'm not good at what I do.
Right, and I do wonder because I'm delving into this in my paper for Richard's seminar a little bit. I wonder if part
I
of the
hate those
reason that you're
things.
not as interested in it affectively, you don't have the same kind of like depth of affective response as a spectator, is because you don't enjoy playing the game as much as you would another fighter.
I think that is
It
absolutely
was this.
like part of the
Relax.
situation.
Relax. Get him
because,
Snorlax,
for
darn it.
example, if you're
No!
I love
Yes!
that. I love the
Were you
endings.
even sure that you had like won there, or was that like a wait? Did I win? Oh, I did.
No, it was conscious because
Okay,
I did
okay.
the thing. I baited him.
All right.
So I do wonder if, like,
Ooh,
for example,
we're gonna switch it up now. We're gonna switch to
We're
Team
gonna do
battles.
the team
we'll
battle.
do team battles without items on, and with
Cool.
a more limited set of maps.
So I feel like, for example, if you had the same kind of like just mechanical
getting
skill
better.
and understanding in this game as
Me
you
and
do in
Janelle
like
can
Fighters,
be
for
a
example,
Sure.
where you could watch something and say like, okay, so this is where some person I'm watching like had an opportunity, missed it, succeeded, whatever, and you have that same
Did you
kind of
change
like
the stages?
gut reaction
Yeah.
to I can.
It's
do
just
I know
like
the combo that
Battlefield?
you could do right
No,
now.
not
I
that.
understand,
It's all the
yes.
competitive
Yeah,
viable
and that
forms. So anything that
totally
you can
produces
pick in a
affective
competition.
response.
I completely agree
Yeah.
with you. I think that is an excellent way of expressing the particular frustration I have with Smash. So I also think that it's important that the rhetoric of the fighting game community is such an aggressive and like rhetorically absolutist sort of situation that it's easy to fall back on terminology and concepts that feel and rhetoric that feel overly antagonistic or like generalizing when communicating sort of in the language that the fighting game community seems to understand.
Okay.
And so that is probably a totally rhetorical error on my part to not make my not ensure that I'm
Nice! What the hell's that, by the way?
I can plant a tree,
Okay.
then I can water the tree, and then I can chop down the tree, and that's what I
And
do.
actually, that's one of the things I like least about the fighting game community broadly. It just ends up being part of what being involved in it is like. So I don't know.
So when you're talking about like fighting game rhetoric, what do you mean?
So I mean both the way that fighting games are discussed by professional players, are considered cross-event, and like how fighting game players interact with each other. You know, with things like taunting and
Sure.
post-victory takes and stuff like. I don't know. That's just been my experience with it. Is that like a lot of places in gaming,
It's no items.
fighting games are always
There's
like
items?
no, there's no
No
items.
items.
Fighting games are a community that are very harshly subdivided and tribalistic and territorial.
Yes, and I would definitely agree with that, and that is definitely one of the reasons I am not like a common spectator of fighting games. It's not something that I really do very much.
Honestly, I watch fighting games with the sound off because I hate listening to fighting game commentators. Because unlike Hearthstone or unlike MOBA or card game commentators who work really hard to maintain at least a semblance of an air of professionalism, fighting game commentators seem to have taken it upon themselves to be part of their community and to reflect the rhetoric we're in, and I find it obnoxious, personally.
I think Eric is aiming in this game.
No, I'm listening to everything you're saying, and
No, but what do you think
there's
about that?
there's like almost too much going on. So the first thing I want to note is like we went back a couple minutes. Oh Jesus, me. Okay.
It's just you. I wasn't, to be fair, I wasn't.
So the first thing I want to note, going back to one of your comments from a little bit ago, I think that, no offense, but I think that some of your comments stem from places of like a little bit of ignorance about the difficulty of the game, and that's okay. But like, for instance, like as somebody who has spent a lot of time in both Street Fighter and in other fighting games learning combos, right? Which are like because that was one of your complaints, is like that there wasn't like a depth of like the combo and that kind of thing. I find the combos in this game to be the most difficult of all the ones that I've learned.
Yeah, but using your personal experience to decry my personal experiences from a position of ignorance.
No. And so what I'm saying is like I think it's fair for you to say like it doesn't look like it's complicated or something like that from the perspective of a spectator. I think that's fine.
But I'm fairly well versed in both games myself, and can say that I don't find Smash to be as complex, as requiring as much skill expression, or as having the depth of character control that other fighting games do. Especially fighting games that I find interesting to play or interesting to watch, like King of Fighters, Guilty Gear, etc. Smash is simplistic in both my personal engagement and from a spectator point of view.
But then, like, okay, so you have an opinion, Eric has a different opinion,
right? And that's all that discussion is it's just a
but
opinion.
At a point, maybe we can look at the game design of like both games and like try to parse it through the game design. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, because think of Sakurai, right? This game was intended to be accessible, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't have layers of complexity of its own.
And I'm all right. Maybe I'll just stop being the contrarian voice.
It's fine to be a contrarian voice. It's just like I would like to see you more use evidence to like support these claims, it's like if we're viewing it as like not having as much skill expression as another fighting game, like I want evidence of that claim.
Okay.
More so than from my perspective, it doesn't seem like it is, because that doesn't really prove anything to me.
What I said to Janelle just a minute ago is that this is entirely from a position of affect and has nothing to do with anything that I can verify. Alright? When I play, watch, and engage with Smash as an individual, I don't find the kind of combo work to be satisfying. It doesn't work for me. I can't more thoroughly explain why. At least not under the pressures of an on-the-spot discussion while we're playing.
okay.
In my experience with it and with other fighting games, I tend to think that I don't know. I don't think I'm coming at it from an academic enough position to find my position defensible, so I'd rather abandon that position and redirect conversation than try to defend it.
Alright, fair enough. So then, another thing, okay. So I think, like, again, like, there's, like, another thing that you said that seems, that I agree with you in principle. Oh, fuck. I agree with you in principle about something you said about fighting game commentators, but I find it interesting that you also decided again to kind of put a valuative claim on it, which is the commentators. Now, I totally understand you find them obnoxious and you don't like the fighting game, the rhetoric of the community. But is there a value in the fact that it's a more low-key kind of
like, don't you feel like the fighting game community wants to be taken seriously?
I think the fighting game community generally wants to be the fighting game community.
What does that mean?
What that means is that the fighting game community, in my experience, has less of a vested interest. This is as somebody who's like thinking of writing a chapter of their dissertation on fighting game communities, using it from an anthropological perspective. So the fighting community has a vested interest in like authenticity as like the primary like authenticity and skill as the two primary arbiters of the community. And so with authenticity, what that means is like people being like true A to themselves, like Daigo playing Ryu forever, right? And so part of the expression of that that in the community is in the commentators who but you're right, like they definitely are, they're more casual by far, and they tend to get hype, so to speak. More so, I just tried to hit Janelle. And they get more hype, they're more casual, they tend to use the rhetoric of the fighting game community more. Janelle, you and I just rocked it.
That was so good.
They tend to use the rhetoric of the fighting game community, right? Like when I watch a broadcast of Hearthstone and it's like Kibler and
Not anymore.
well,
No,
Kibler,
he's back.
yeah, no, Kibler just said he wouldn't do BlizzCon. He didn't say he was
No,
done.
Grandmaster's Tour.
Yeah,
He was at BlizzCon, I guess.
he didn't. No, but he was at BlizzCon, but he didn't commentate the BlizzCon
Oh, okay.
Masters
Yeah.
thing. So, but I'm just using them as an example because they're the best. But I think that there's a lot of affective joy in watching a more casual commentary. In particular, I think of my favorite two commentators who are often considered by many to be the best commentator duo in all of esports, which is Artosis and Tasteless of StarCraft 2. Now we can disagree whether or not they actually are the best, but many people say, like, oh, I got my main.
I don't particularly
Oh, I
enjoy
haven't done
Artosis' commentary personally.
What?
I don't particularly enjoy Artosis' commentary
Oh
personally.
my god,
That's fine. You don't have to like
I-
Artosis or anything like that. But I'm just saying, there's a lot of people who do, and that's what I'm more interested in. I don't really care about what I like and dislike most of the time.
Right. I'm not writing a chapter of my dissertation on this,
Yeah.
and I'm this entirety of my engagement with it stems from my personal do I enjoy watching it or not. And one of the things I find as a side effect, I actually completely agree with you about the idea of authenticity in the fighting game community being a prized idea. The problem I have is that authenticity ends up meaning that a lot of players who hold seriously problematic viewpoints, who are racist, homophobic, misogynistic, end up getting to express that openly, and the community refuses to police itself. And I hate that. That does not work for me.
I'm just gonna jump right on that. Okay.
Me and my main versus you two with most of your stocks left. Let's do this.
I believe in you, Eric.
I think my main is not very good at team battles. That's the thing. If I was like actually doing squads, I would never pick this character, even though it's who I play in ones.
So, without knowing very much about what, Dave, what you were just talking about, because I don't know about like the kind of problematic discourse within fighting communities, especially on stream. So I don't know anything about that, but I do find that very problematic, like the idea that certain communities,
I think
fighting or otherwise, don't like police themselves, and there's no kind of regard for like what language is being used and who is being excluded.
And I'm by the way, I want to make sure I'm being explicit about the fact that I am not singling the fighting game community out for
Okay,
being
good.
Yeah,
That was gonna be one of my
every
because
comments.
MOBA
community
communities
feels
are
like
as bad or
that.
worse in every respect.
MOBA communities are terrible.
And most, I mean, no way is the fighting game community a situation
Like
where
it's not an outlier.
no, not at all.
But
I
you're
would say
more we're
that's
saying
Ooh!
Is that in what I would consider to be
the authenticity thing can bleed into this other problem that we already addressed.
yes, and can exacerbate, can cause that issue to become an issue during what should be accessible large-scale broadcasts, things like major competitions, things where a larger audience is going to be involved, and that kind of speech and rhetoric I think is unacceptable.
That move is normally safe if you hit the opponent, but not in teams. I tried to grab somebody. That also is not good.
Wow, that was sick, man. Like,
That was excellent.
I'm just doing my best.
we have to split because, like, oh my god, like, it's so good.
I know.
Like, okay.
Now there's no way we win.
It's 2v1.
Yeah, and we've lost 3 stock to your 1.
No, I had 3 to start. So you've killed me twice.
So we've killed you twice when we've lost 5 stock total, I think. Or 4 stock total.
Oh!
You can tell it's getting serious, and suddenly the conversation is.
I'm just trying to do my best. I
This is
put
just
a high
amazing to
value
watch.
on. I put a high value on skill expression. Like it's like I love doing my best. Like a lot of times I don't care if I win or lose. I just want to do my best and feel like I did. Oh, shit. Wow, that was weird. That started with hitting Daniel, and then for some reason I ended up hitting the plant at the end.
Oh!
Nice, darn it. Yeah, that was it. Good game.
That was
That was
wild.
way too close.
Yeah. It's so
Oh, that was
embarrassing.
excellent.
Yeah, yes, it's embarrassing to win by that bare margin 2v1.
Yeah.
Like, that's...
Oh, that was awesome.
Maybe we should move to 1v1? What do you think?
Yeah, it is 1 o'clock, so I think
Yeah.
I think spending the last portion of the show, I'll sit out because I want to spend the last hour show. I want to entertain
But
an idea
how-
rating that we had for.
We have to exit our solo.
Nope, just quick solo
Okay.
battle, and then two people
you-
can just
yeah,
you guys
you
can
can
even
go,
play
yeah.
threes if you want. I don't mind.
No, you play. Yeah.
You have then you have to exit your stuff out quick to
Oh.
play your 4 thing.
But like, you don't have to like. Are you using tournament rules like Battlefield, like
Just-
Omega stages?
It's already on. It's
Oh,
random
okay.
stages, all the legal stages for tournament play. So like this is how I practice. So Leafa Trainer is great. She's one of my favorite characters.
That's amazing.
So I agree that the fighting game community has like the same issues that I think the broader gaming community has on the whole. I think in some ways, the fighting game community has possible ways of policing itself that it occasionally will take advantage of and then occasionally won't. So for instance, I think of a player like Sonic Fox and race in general in the fighting communities. Like Sonic Fox is black, but I'm more thinking about how he is
furry.
he's a furry
yeah.
and he's
LGBT.
He's LGBT, and like because he is successful, like, and we can argue that creates a problem in and of itself. But he is a successful player who is who is loved in like multiple communities, the Dragon Ball Fighters community
Yes.
as well as Street Fighter.
Dragon Ball. Oh, Mortal Kombat.
And I'm pretty sure he's good at something else too. Technically,
Mortal
maybe.
Kombat.
Yes.
Mortal
Mortal
Kombat.
Kombat.
Yeah, like not just Mortal Kombat, like NetherRealm Studios games in general.
And
Like
so-
he began in Injustice.
And so there's, I find generally speaking in 1v1 games, they can have a better community and a worse for female players because you don't have to rely on a team, and thus you don't have, like, and I'm not saying there is none, because there's actually a lot of sexism in fighting game communities, but rather there's a there's a lot of sexism in gaming. But I think of a player like Scarlet, who's a trans woman in StarCraft, again, a single-player competitive game, who is able to succeed in part because she doesn't have to deal with like the sexism of teammates and of like organized, matchmaking, right?
Yep.
Yes, and I will caveat that of special importance here is that, like, in team-based sports, especially MOBAs, one of the reasons that women have had so few opportunities and done stuff is because organizationally they are completely shut out.
Yes. Yes.
So, yeah, I agree with you from that perspective that the fighting game community has opportunities to offer chances to people who might not otherwise.
Mhm. And then,
Should just
yeah.
and like, but you could compare for example like card games communities as well, because like if you go to like Magic or like Hearthstone, it's 1v1 as well, like
Hearthstone World Champion is a woman. Right?
yeah, but
So-
but at the same time I feel that for example like fighting games like tournament and whatever, like there is a feeling about like being like at shoulder length
Mhm.
with your opponent, like playing mind games, like there's like a more like I feel that like materially it gets more
When you do the
aggressive.
freeze in, press B when the circle gets in the red,
Okay.
and then you'll be powered up for a little bit. But unfortunately, if you keep doing it, it takes longer to deep breathe. Continue though, Dave.
Daniel. So I feel that like different from other like 1v1 competitive games, like
Mhm.
fighting in the like the whole, it's not just the game in itself, but like the whole like situation of playing a fighting game competitively, like especially like
It's more personal.
personal, it gets super like personal super fast. Like
Mhm.
you get like players like throwing away controllers and like flipping out, like raging
Yeah.
So I feel that like these games, it's not just the game design, but like because for example, card games are more like mental. So
and like physical.
yeah, so I feel that this bodily thing, like this bodily affectivity, like plays a part on like displays of aggression or in toxicity.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
definitely. They definitely do. Then yeah, and then one thing I'll just note is that in the U.S. fighting game community, there's just a lot of people of color in the U.S. fighting game community, more so than I see in like, for instance, like I'll take League of Legends, the North American League. The majority of players who you won. The majority of players in the League of Legends
Players'
are,
expression.
I can't.
Yeah, I
from
suck
when
at this
from
game.
when I followed the NALCS, which was a while ago, I do not remember there being any black players and only a few Asian American players.
Yeah, current NALCS has one person of color in all of NA and EU on the roster this season.
Oh,
Dota 2, I think, suffers from the same thing. I can't think of. I want to delineate between black.
I got player one.
Is that
Sorry.
how I just met?
Oh,
You're
yeah,
a player
that's okay.
four.
Just switch your name.
Oh, there we go.
Just switch your name.
Cool.
And I'll.
You have to
Oh,
go.
you're good.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh my God.
Do you mind if I just play random?
No, pick someone that you like playing. Like
All right,
I'll feel
I'll
better.
I'll play my main for one.
Yeah, I'm gonna try Terry because I really love him. Oh, and I don't like just a random comment, like
And we'll try to like do some rotation, so it's not just
Yeah.
always me and him and then you.
just a
Yeah.
random comment, like.
Mhm.
For me, it's so weird that like when Terry came up, people didn't know who he was. Like like because Terry is such an important character for me, like in fighting games, like in general.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I agree that the Terry thing, I think it threw me off guard. I knew who Terry was, I think, on like so like that was a combo there. Like, so, like I had to practice to be able to do that for a long time. But anyways, sorry, just like things I'm thinking about. So like in Dota 2, I want to delineate between black or African American players and Asian in general, because obviously like Dota and League of Legends are obviously very popular
I
in
can't do anything
Asia,
like
right?
Right.
And so
And
there are
even
people of color we might consider.
That was when I said there was like one person of color. I was using the definition I believe you were drawing from, because I wasn't counting Korean, Japanese, and Chinese players who
Okay.
had been imported into the leagues
Okay.
to play for American teams. I was not, because there are at least 1 to 2 typically roster shifted people or imported from other leagues on any given team. There's actually a league in League of Legends in particular, in the NALCS. There are regulations about how many players you can
Yeah,
import.
because there was a point where like there were teams in both of those leagues that were just like a Korean team that
Right.
moved over. So anyway, so my point being is that like in fighting games we see a lot of players of color. Like I'm thinking of like in Smash Ultimate right now. Like I'm thinking of like some of the best players in the world. Sorry, I'm just thinking a lot. I am trying to play, but some of the best players in the world, like MKLeo, Samsora, like these are all players who routinely get like the top of their turns. Nairo, all people of color. Like there's actually I would say more people of color in the Smash community in general.
I completely agree with
there
you.
are white people, and I find that interesting. And there's probably a lot of reasons why, but that also tends to hold up. That they're equal or more people of color in a lot of these.
Oh my God.
And I recognize the potential problematicness of calling out
This could get so
misogynistic, machismic behavior in communities.
Oh, where there's like a majority of people of color. Yeah.
Right. I recognize
Yeah.
that as an issue as well.
Mhm. Yeah. So all that to say, what I'm trying to say is, I find fighting game communities interesting as a scholar.
Hey, Daniel,
Because
why don't you
they represent
play
a different.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think fighting games communities represent fighting games represent a different kind of community, And I wonder, like, thinking in terms of Dissertot, which was what I'm going to move on to now. Dissertot talks about the relationship between performance and representation.
Mhm.
And so in the book that I'm reading right now, he specifically delineates how, like, he says something which I don't totally agree with, but is basically that, like, the intentions of, he kind of does a death of the author thing, where it's like the intentions of the author don't matter.
No, you're
It's
good.
the way users manipulate the text that
Yeah.
matters. Which is funny because he's talking before video games are a thing.
Yes.
But I think that is interesting in terms of fighting games. Like but I think in terms of representation. So what is it about the game that draws this different community to it than that of other ones? But let's go ahead and I want to read from Logic, Games, Tales, and Art of Speaking. It's a section of Chapter 2 of The Practice of Everyday Life by Dissertot.
Ooh.
So, from these imprints on language, we are already returning toward operators' way of operating. But it is not enough to describe individual ruses and devices. In order to think them, one must suppose that these ways of operating correspond a finite number of procedures. Invention is not unlimited, and like improvisations on the piano or guitar, it presumes knowledge and application of codes that they imply, and then this is italicized, a logic of the operation of actions relative to types of situations. So basically, right, just talking about, like, how do we, like, do things? It's like, you know, we're basing it off of logic and knowledge we've had beforehand. This logic, which turns on circumstances, has its precondition, contrary to procedures of Western science, the non-autonomy of its field of action. The rich elucidation, is that how you say? I don't know how you say it. Elucidation of this logic can be found in Chinese thought, the canonical I Ching, Art of War, or Book of Tricks in Arab text, which, or at least that's how he describes it. But we need to seek our models so abroad. Every society always manifests somewhere the formal rules which its practices obey. But where should we look for them in the West, since our scientific method, by substituting its own places for the complexity geography of social ruses and artificial language for ordinary language, has allowed and even required reason to adopt a mastery and transparency. Like Poe's Purloined Letter, the inscriptions of these various logics are written in places so obvious that one does not see them. Without referencing against ordinary language, we can already suggest 3 places which, hidden only by their very evidence, the formal rules these are. And so then this is where he talks about, so that's the preface to the section on games. So there's just one more paragraph and then we'll talk a little about it. Alright, I guess it's 2 more. First of all, in the specific games of each society, games which are operations are disjunctive because they produce different events, give rise to spaces where moves are proportional to situations. And then we're like, right, and that's kind of what we're talking about when we're talking about the value and skill expression, right? It's like moves and situations. From the game of chess, an aristocratic form of the art of war, which came from China and was brought by the Arabs into medieval Western culture, where it constituted it's translated from French.
And it was written,
you know,
quite a while ago.
50, 60 years ago.
Right.
Even though a lot
It's from
of
the
Scrabble,
80s, actually.
games formulate games formulate rules.
83, I guess.
Yeah. So games formulate rules, organizing moves, and constitute a memory of schemas and actions, articulating replies with respect to circumstances.
You guys are gonna play, right?
Right? And so I think that keys into, like, the fighting game so much, right? This idea that games formulate rules organized into moves, which then constitute as well a memory of schemas and actions and articulating replies with respect to circumstances. And fighting games are all about, like, all games ultimately are this, but fighting games in particular make visible the reply, right, nature of the, so then continuing, they exercise that function precisely because they are detached from those everyday combats which forbid one to show their hand, and whose stakes, rules, and moves are too complex. The explicitness of the rules is always inversely proportional to the practical engagement involved. If we observe a formulation of tactics in these games, as has been done in respect to the game of Go, or compared to games the technique of divination, whose formal framework has the purpose of adjusting a decision to concrete situations, we gain a preliminary body of material concerning the kinds of rationality proper to the practice of spaces that are closed and historicized by variability of the events to be treated. And then this is the part that I found the most interesting. To these games corresponds accounts of particular games. People tell each other about the hand they had to play the night before, or the slam they made the previous week. These stories represent a succession of combinations among all those that the syncretic organization of space, of rules, of deals, etc. make possible. They are paradigmic projections of a choice among these possibilities, right? And that's why we play these games, it's because of choice. And I like what you were saying about, and I think that kind of speaks to a little bit about what you found not as engaging about Smash, was a feeling like there was less of that, right?
Yes.
Like the bridge or chess in New York Times, the stories can be formulated in a special code, thus making it clear that every event is a particular application of the formal framework. But in replaying the games, this is what's really, I think, so true about our contemporary moment, as well as just games in general. In telling about them, these accounts record the rules and the moves simultaneously. To be memorized as well as memorable, they are repertoires of schemes of action between partners. With the attraction that the elements of surprise introduces, these mementos teach the tactics possible within a given social system. And so, what I find really interesting about this is like this idea of the moves and the rules like coinciding in our retelling of like saying like in that game, you know, unfortunately I wasn't watching. But if you were to tell the story of that game, right, the rules and the moves become inseparable in a way that, like, they're not separate when you're actually playing the game.
Yeah.
And so when we are discussing and playing games, how do we kind of map the rules onto our discussion and our memory to some degree? And how does that change?
Nice.
Like with this last part, with that attraction, that elements of surprise, these mementos teach the tactics possible within a given social system, right? So it's expanding games out to include more than just the games themselves.
Yeah, so then that would apply to like the gaming communities. And so when was this from? 80s, you said?
Daniel said, I'll look it up. Go ahead.
I just find that interesting, right? Because there's like so many, say, additional applications for that now, right? Because if we're going to talk about kind of social sphere outside of the game itself, we can talk about gaming communities, tournaments, streaming communities, right? Which I find really interesting. I'm not really sure like what to do with that necessarily, but I think that you're right about like the kind of physical mapping and how we map that to memory. I think that's really interesting with fighting games especially.
Yeah, I think, like, in particular, with fighting games, I think moves become so crucial. Like, when I think of, like Evil Moment 37, right, which you're writing about,
Yep.
yes, there's, like, the exact record of, like, the inputs that the players made. But what we find amazing, and what keeps drawing us back, is not that this particular event is locked within the rules, but rather that it was one possibility out of many, right? And the fact that that's the possibility that is now mapped onto our memory is what creates this moment and creates why we want to keep playing. And I think...
But I killed myself.
Yeah, thanks, by the way.
And I think I'll join in on the next game against whoever.
I lost, so... all right, I'll play.
We're just kind of like loosely rotating.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so like mapping,
Let me
like there were
disconnect.
100 possibilities for how that could have possibly gone, but what got mapped was the most unlikely of them, maybe.
And I love like how Dissertor like makes this claim about like spaces and time, like how like strategies are trying to map things into place. Like this is the place where this thing happens, and how we regulate this kind of knowledge, and how like subjects like people are trying to using like moments, like specific moments in time, trying to fight back or like inhabit those places and like make these places like conform to their reality as well. So
Yeah.
I'm thinking about like Evil Moment 37, like 10 years after the thing happened, if I'm not mistaken, like they tried to replicate what happened, like
Oh, did they?
yeah, like Daigo and the other guy, they
Yeah.
tried to remake that same match, you know what I mean? But like,
Yeah.
but it's a different point in time, so there is a specific historicity in that moment, like that makes that moment happen. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's not like just okay, so we have the same people in the same space. That will happen again. It's not like that, you know. Like
Yeah.
so,
Right.
there is like this specific like what this calls tactics. Like you have strategies. There are like schemas for institutions that try to make spaces of knowledge in how to govern these places. But you have tactics that is like how people deal with those spaces and like how they navigate those
Yeah.
spaces and how they make their agency like felt in those spaces. You know.
Yeah. I find the idea of schemas really interesting and kind of how that plays out. Because to a certain extent, I mean, we're still building what those schemas are, especially when it comes to competitive gaming and esports. We don't have necessarily like concrete ideas of what the schemas could even be, right? So take something that developed very quickly, like Overwatch League, for example. It had to build on a totally different schema, right? Traditional sports broadcasting to make it what it is now.
Yeah.
But then, so he calls it tactics, right? So then is that kind of like missing element in the recreation of Evo 37?
But at the same time, like, sorry, if you take the Overwatch League, like, they draw upon the schema of a traditional sports broadcast, but like, it doesn't work like completely, like, because for example,
absolutely.
when they try to like make the player like quarterback, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
the thing of like the players entering and like the
Yes.
presence of the body on the stage and whatever.
Yep.
It's not. It doesn't
Not as
work.
compelling.
Like,
Yeah, it's
you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like-
it doesn't carry that same. But you know, they're really trying to.
Yes.
So I'm one here.
So,
Yeah.
you have to switch
Oh,
over
I
to
want to play.
Jan.
So yeah, they really try and kind of like import the affect of like watching your team come in through like the tunnel or whatever, which I find interesting because in a lot of broadcasts you don't even get to see that.
Yeah, I think I totally agree that
I never play Baldur's Gate.
like gaming, generally speaking, has a tricky time trying to figure out how it wants to mediate the competition, because on one hand it's like, okay, we're a sport, so we'll do all these sporty kind of things, but also, as we've seen, like where with Dave talking about how he doesn't like the broadcast style of the fighting games, they're also trying to be a game, right? So like
Right.
like a lot of times in the fighting game community, and actually in I think it's fair to say this is in most gaming communities, we'll see players come and be commentators, especially at like summit like events.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so like that creates like it's like is like that you typically we see that in we would see that in regular sports, but only once the player has retired, as
Yep.
opposed to like oh look, now Hungrybox is here,
Right.
commentating on the thing because he's out of the tournament or something like that. One thing I find interesting about Deserto and his way of defining it, that I think speaks to a feeling I sometimes have, is that we can sometimes talk about these kinds of games, right, where the online variety, like League of Legends or Dota or Overwatch, where the rules of the game tend to be changing all the time, right? Not just the new metas, but like the actual code, the
Yeah.
literal rules,
Sure.
right? Like baseball doesn't change very much. In even like soccer and American football, sometimes they'll update a little bit, but they don't really dramatically change the rules, right?
Right.
It's not like something you can pick up a soccer ball and run around with it. And I think that Deserto's discussions of moves
Nice.
and rules kind of allows for more than traditional conceptualizations of games, right? Where we are kind of like, is it the same game? Are we still playing Overwatch like this Theseus' ship problem or something?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think with Deserto's definition, it's really easy to just be like, well, no. Like, because the moves are still the same. Because, like,
Right.
the game hasn't changed that much. And thus, like, it lives. Because it's funny, because, like, last week we were playing... We didn't watch Evo Moment 37 last week. But at one point I did the Chun-Li move, like the kick thing.
Yeah.
So, like, even though it's a completely different game, it's within the same series, and we can see the moves still exist within that space.
Right.
And I think that is, like... I don't know, what do we want to do with that?
I don't know.
So you mean like the
Maybe how does it change our understanding of meta?
why'd you do it, Daniel?
Well, I think it helps us understand the way that metas and like kind of establishments in these games get built, but answers the sort of what I consider to be generally a bad faith question about the idea of like, if is playing League of Legends after patch 1.68 the same as playing League of Legends before patch 1.68? I think you just established that fairly effectively. And that what Disserto brings is a fluidity to definition, an ability to not be overly concerned with semiotic like truth when it comes to defining what a game is and whether a game is still that game's title or not. Is Smash Ultimate still a Smash Brothers game? What does it mean to be a Smash Brothers game versus to be Melee specifically versus to be whatever?
Yeah, because there's one player who's like a pro in Ultimate who was a pro in 4 as well, who like went on a long Twitter rant about years of research, and obviously it's kind of memey now because like he is kind of disliked in his name is Sam Sora.
Yep.
But like his comment was basically that like Melee players are not Smash players. Like there's a differentiation there. Right. And part of that comes from seeing like the communities being split. Like most Melee players don't play the other games, and most other game players don't play Melee. But it also has to do with like the fact that the rules are so different for those games. Right?
Yes, that Melee is so much more, has so many particular mechanics and features and movesets that don't exist in other Smash games. So they are mechanically different. But I think that Melee... So that's an interesting divide he's making between social communities and the social engagement around those communities. I think it's interesting to say, though, that Melee is still a Smash game because it still bears all of the kind of core features of what it means to be a Smash game.
And the moves.
The Dissertoian moves that it means to play Smash.
Nice.
So...
Oh, man.
I think the last time I played you, I don't really have
No, we haven't
1v1
actually
you.
played.
I haven't 1v1
me.
1v1 you, bro.
Bro.
Continue though. Sorry.
No, that's fine. I was reaching kind of the end of what I was saying there. I think that is kind of, and that's that sort of legacy is how you can tell a Street Fighter game from a Tekken game, but you can feel the connection in Street Fighter to its previous and subsequent titles and a Tekken game and a Mortal Kombat and etc. Like they can kind of all exist in their own right. And then I think that Daniel, you made an excellent point talking about that Sonic Fox like was big in NetherRealms games, right? Because why is the name the DC fighting game that they do?
Injustice.
Injustice. Thank you. I just couldn't think of that word. Like it was just I was thinking of like Undivided, and I'm just like that's not right. But Injustice plays like Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
Right? It borrows the moves.
It's by the developers of Mortal Kombat.
Right, yeah, because it's from NetherSoft. But that's not to say like Arc Systems Works don't make the same game every time they make a fighting game, right? So it was a deliberate choice on NetherSoft's part to make Injustice use the same style of inputs, have the same type of hitboxes, to develop in the same way that it does with Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
They're drawing on the intentionality of making it accessible to Mortal Kombat players, but to have a different like license on top of it as a choice.
Yeah, and like I don't know if this is a departure from the conversation, but like I feel that what's interesting about like Smash for me, like if we go like 1v1, like Terry versus Ken or Terry versus Ryu, for example, that's Capcom versus SNK, and there is a Capcom versus SNK game,
Which is the game I played the most as a kid.
which is amazing. And like, but when you make a Capcom versus SNK or Marvel vs Capcom, like, which one comes on top? How can you make a character plays like a Marvel or an SNK character,
Right.
and how this translates to a platforming game? And that's and that's my particular point of disagreement with your argument earlier about like complexity and character mastery about Smash. Like, we've been like playing up with Sakurai here, like okay Sakurai whatever, but like I'm very I'm very humbled by how he's committed to like to be faithful and like to design stuff in a way that is very like very like in a very responsible way. Like I admire his work ethic. You know,
I do too.
because like there is a way that we are in the same game. This is Smash, so you have like certain like rules and you have like certain conventions that you have to adhere.
Right.
But at the same time, like each character has like traits and have like mechanics that has to be balanced when it comes to other characters and stuff like that.
Not actually dumb to do that.
And I feel that the roster is getting bigger and like characters are getting more complex. Like you have characters with very like specific mechanics that you have to learn, and they manage to do that somehow without losing the Smash like convention, but also being faithful to the like original game.
Yeah. I totally follow what you're saying, and I think that is part of what I like about Smash is that capacity. So, all right, I will counter by saying that not even really a counter. This is just like a difference that I. How do I put this exactly? I don't like watching Smash as a fighting game.
Okay.
I like playing Smash as a fighting game. More than I like playing traditional,
Nice.
your traditional like 2D and 2.5D fighters. Because Smash is a game that is more feels, affect, totally emotional response. Feels, and doing some interrogation about why I feel this way is probably important. But, feels more like
You hit the fire hydrant.
a party game, more like something I play with a group of people that I get to have an enjoyment time with, than it does the kind of, me and my friends sitting down and trading off the controllers 1v1ing. I never feel, when I'm playing Smash in exactly what we're doing now, this kind of round robin 1v1, I never feel like
The rush, the drive.
it never satisfies my specific form of what I think is good skill expression, of what makes me happy to see that I executed a combo successfully.
Okay.
Like when I have done the control inputs and set a thing up and timed a combo well and gotten through on somebody in a game like Fighters or Street Fighter, or, or Tekken or whatever. Like, and so all of those are so different games in their own right that the specifics of when that happens is going to be so wild.
Yeah.
That feels rewarding to me in a way
That's awesome.
that
I was playing with
platform
games.
bouncing does not
Okay.
in Smash.
Yeah.
Could be something to talk about.
And,
Lightweight.
and that's. I want to play Eric again. I need to take at least one stock, man. Like.
But did you not? Do you want me to play my main again, or do you just want me to just play?
No, I want you to play your man. Your
I'll
main.
play my secondary.
Oh, okay. Oh,
I'm way worse with Sheik, but I'm still pretty good.
okay. Oh.
And I can show specifically. There's like some combos with Sheik that I have that are like that hit the feeling that you're describing much better than I think a lot of characters in the cast.
I'm gonna come back to this later.
That's fine. And I will fully cop to the fact, as I said to Janelle earlier, that one of the things that comes with is that comes from my ability to interpret, understand, and engage with what's happening in a way that makes sense to me. And so my inability to do that may affect my affective response to the game. In fact, totally does affect my affective response to the game as a result. It's one of the reasons that I don't particularly care for watching competitive StarCraft 2, even though, I did for a long time, but I don't really anymore because I don't understand StarCraft 2 well enough to appreciate the skill expression that's happening there from an affective position, the way I do for other fighting games.
Right, and I think that totally has a lot to do with it. And I think that the way that you kind of relate to a game affectively, especially in a competitor setting but not exclusively, will absolutely just influence what kind of enjoyment, what kind of satisfaction you get
Really?
from playing the game
Because it
and
was
from
2 hits,
respecting
and
the
that
game.
blocks the first hit.
So, like, for example, I think of something like Overwatch that has a crazy array of skills and applications, right? With so many different heroes and they all do different things and all. That was insane. They all do different things and different heroes have different skill gaps, right?
Right.
So I get, for example, I get that physical rush when I watch Saya Player on the Florida Mayhem play Widowmaker because Widowmaker's my main.
And
So I have that.
the nuances, what's happening there, are clearer to you than they would be to me, because I don't go anywhere near snipers, especially Widow. Like if I'm gonna play a sniper, it's gonna be on an Anon support or maybe Hanzo.
Right. And
Like
then,
who's got a wholly different set of ballistics.
absolutely. Like, it's effectively a totally different kind of mechanic.
Right.
Whereas if I were to watch someone play, like, I don't know, one of the newer heroes, because I haven't played Overwatch in a while. So
Bridget or
so like a Brigitte or something like that, I would be like, well, this is cool because it's Overwatch, but I don't have the same kind of, like, nuanced understanding of what it takes to cause what's happening on the screen.
and so much of my ability to enjoy what's going on, and then subsequently my affective response to the game in total as a competitive sport requires that exact. That was pretty good.
Harry,
edge
that was
control.
brutal.
It was
That
really
was
good edge
amazing.
control. Requires that kind of thing. That's another thing, is that like one of the things about Smash as a game is that because it's a platform game and there's so much off platform action that happens, there's so much combo and attack that happens in the air and recovery and air control. Those are things that, while I appreciate, that take a lot of an intense amount of skill to do, I just don't particularly enjoy them.
Sure.
They're not very interesting to me.
Of having to go off the stage, like, because like you're putting yourself in a precarious situation.
Yeah.
But to get I've just always in my life like been a player who SDs off the edge because I'm so committed to like going off the edge to kill my opponent, because I find that to be so like that's like the spirit of the game to me. Good job.
Yeah, I get that.
And so
I don't do that because I don't have enough control.
to me. So
And I do not in any way contest the idea that that is a totally incredible type of skill expression, and one that I cannot for the life of me seem to get a handle on. And I mean, it's not unfair for me to say that part of my distaste for Smash just comes from the fact that I consider myself to be a pretty good fighting game player, and I can't get a handle on it.
Yeah, and so there's a certain element of like just kind of frustration.
Thanks.
I think my ZSS is like obviously my best, but like my Sheik is not considered a very good character, but I really love playing it. So this is a fun matchup for me because like we're more even, and I'm having more fun because I have to actually be processing.
My problem with Smash is like connecting combos. Right? It's hard because like it's different from like a traditional non-platform fighting games because like.
You two can go ahead and play around.
Yeah, like the amount of like movement that you have to manage is super simple compared to this. So this I can do like a short hop, but I have to be so skilled to do a short hop and connect to a combo and like follow up to do a thing. Like I would never in my current state I would never like follow you off platform to try to finish because I know that I don't have enough control to confirm the kill and then come back.
But that's kind of the catch-22, which is that for me, I was the same way for a long time. I'd be like, oh, you're at the stage, I will just stand here, and then once in a while I would do a little poke off.
Yeah.
And then I realized and this is true for a lot of fighting games.
Somebody.
Oh, sorry.
You two are gonna play, I guess. This is true for a lot of competitive games, but. You don't get better unless you're trying things that you can't do, right?
Right.
So eventually I was just you know what? I will die, but I'm going to have fun jumping off and trying to kill people on the side. And then I got a lot better at it.
Right.
But yeah, I totally get that feel. And also just that feeling of getting the combos are so difficult. So for instance, with Sheik, I just wanted to give some quick conceptualizations of me because I practice combos with Sheik quite a bit. I know, for instance, that I can do a combo when you're low, relatively. I've got a couple combos on those. So one if I grab you, and then I do my fish, it's where I bounce through the air and slap you. It happens. I know that like that will connect for like the first 10%. But then after that, grab becomes like useless because like I can't. There's nothing. There's no follow up from grab that I can do. It's just a grab.
Yeah.
But like my big combo that I know how to do is just forward tilt, which is where she like kicks up her leg, and then into then to short hop, fair, and then fast fall. Then I can do it again. I can do another forward tilt, fair, until you get off the stage, up until about 50%. But then, after 50%, for most of the cast, forward tilt no longer leads into forward air. But it does lead into up air. So I have to like if I'm like turning off my brain and you're at like 70%, you'll see sometimes that I'll forward tilt and then forward air, and that doesn't connect anymore. And so like you can see how, for me at least, playing Smash, there's a lot of skill expression because I have to be managing like all of these different things in my head of what works at this part of the game, which is to me really exciting and invigorating. And I totally understand that maybe that's not for everyone.
That is not for me.
And it requires like such precision, you know, like input precision, like I mean like.
To be fair, I would say regular fighting games require a lot of precision too.
I
think precision of command is is like if we were to make a taxonomy of. Oh my God, Janelle! You win! You win!
Yep,
that's it.
You know what? That's an entire stock for me. I'm just dead. I'm dead with that.
Oh no!
Like, so just to note, like, for if you're watching at home or whatever, it's like if Janelle didn't parry that, which means releasing the shield button right when it hit, then it would have broke your shield and you would have been dead.
Yeah.
But instead you parried it at exactly the right moment, which is really difficult to do.
Yeah.
Like, I can't do that.
Oh, that was excellent though.
Yeah, that was a good
game.
I'm thoroughly defeated.
I'm thoroughly defeated as my character dances in victory.
Yeah. I love Link's like just golf clap, like just.
Yeah.
Sportsmanship. So what was that last thing I was just saying before?
Input precision.
Like we were gonna make a taxonomy of fighting games in general, as well as. Okay, sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, Dan is running.
Oh, okay.
I think input precision and like coordinated, like doing certain actions
rematch.
in a row as like a necessity to the game is something that is not unique wholly to fighting games, but would be like one of your primary defining characteristics of what it is.
Absolutely.
And Smash and all other fighting games have that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't dispute that at all.
Yeah.
But that's personal style. So for me, Smash is more complicated in terms of input precision than other games. For me, but like.
See, like that's a combo, right? And so. A good rule of thumb: never be right above somebody in Smash. You'll just
be
because it's really hard to attack downward, and you have a lot of options, right? Fighting games are always about like knowing what options your opponent has at that moment and trying to be able to counter them.
And that I think is like one of the skill expressions that if I were to continue playing Smash, that's what I want to work on. So understanding like basic mechanics, obviously, but then being able to read what my opponent is able to do at a certain time and what the available kind of defenses are.
Yeah, because it does. We do have the classic what we talked about last week, where shield beats attack, grab beats shield, and then attack beats grab, right?
Yep.
And so, like, there is still a lot of things clearly borrowed from fighting.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, even the parry, right?
Yeah, even the parry, yeah. Parry was a new thing in this game. I want to try to parry something. Throw those projectiles at it. Oh, you're actually gonna do it. All right, let's try this out.
Can I go?
Yep. That's like. Can't do it. There we go. I did it. Okay, that's fine.
Demo over.
Ooh. Still living.
Oh, I love it. Yes.
Yeah, I played a ton of SNK vs. Capcom, and Terry was my boy.
Man.
love how he can connect the combos just like a traditional fighting game.
Yeah, I do really appreciate that. And I just as a game with,
Really?
with which the only exposure that I really had to this game was like
Oh no.
tournaments that I would watch people play during undergrad, like in the middle of the night in our dorms.
Mm-hmm.
This game has like unparalleled playability in terms of like really big groups of people that can all kind of share something. Even if you're not someone that games a lot, you'll recognize maybe one,
Kirby.
two, or
Oh,
more.
come
Yeah.
on, man! Like
you'll
that was
recognize really
just dumb.
famous characters and be able
Sorry.
to play with them, and that I think.
But
has
I'm
been,
getting
like,
more
fun.
comfortable with
Yeah.
Yeah, completely.
One of the things I'll just note is you're mashing the jump button when you get off stage right away. You want to save your second jump because what's happening is like you'll jump and I'll hit you out of your jump and then you lose your second jump and then it's like impossible to return back to the stage. So there are moments where I was hitting you off stage where I didn't think I was going to kill you and then I did. Only because you had wasted your jump like a little too early.
That's also my problem. I just panic jump as soon as I'm off the platform.
And also, like, this is good feedback to have because, like, I didn't notice that. So it's important to like, and that's something that it's so nice to have a community to play with. Because, like,
Absolutely.
for example, I know you when you played like Zero Suit Samus, I know what your main combo is now. So and the last time we were playing, I was trying to avoid it because like you shoot the gun and then like I freeze and then you go and follow up with that and like that's super dangerous. But at the same time, like I know what you're gonna do, but I'm not skilled enough to avoid that. You know what I mean? So there is like this gap between knowing what's dangerous and what your game plan is, and being able to actually
have an answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I totally and that goes into our discussion of moves, right? And like when we have commentators, whether we like them or not, discussing like a game and the moves, they're
barrel right off.
And now you're Ivysaur. Right? Like, but like, so like moves can be like, you know, like they just don't have an answer. Like for instance, like in like American football, that might be like, oh, like there's this play that the other team keeps running, and if they don't have an answer to it, right, if they can't stop it, they're just gonna keep running it, right? And so like that's part of that like that rhythm of like replying back to each other, right?
Yeah.
It's because like it's like, okay, here's I present, like one of us is presenting problems to the other one, and then the other player has to present solutions. And that chaff kind of cuts both ways, which is why we find games interesting. Because on one hand, it can cut the way of like I'm the aggressor. You have to have an answer to this particular combo or this particular aggressive maneuver. But it can also cut in I'm the defender. I want to react to what you do. You need to have something that I can't react to, or you need to bait me into making a decision.
Yeah.
And because there's that constant play between replying
every time.
Both of those characters
Can't
have
I
something
fly?
that fly. Push them off with that water.
And at the same time, like for example, and that's when the skill gap like comes into play because for example, I feel that in Street Fighter we had like
okay, come on.
Up here. You try.
We had a shorter skill gap
you
in
have
Street
something
Fighter
up
because
here.
It's like, no!
because in Street Fighter I could read what you're doing with Sakura.
Yes,
At some point, I managed to like to use that in my favor because the skill gap wasn't like so huge as it is here. Because and like I would have to like get much more familiar with like controls and like improve my individual skill like regardless of your strategy. I would have to like to be more tactful like to use this controls like vocabulary. I would have to have more practical mastery to be able to interpret like your strategies or your own tactics to be able to respond to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. Ooh, nice. You can charge up that ball by pressing B and then not pressing anything else. And then if you press any button like shield or move, you'll still have the charged ball, but then you can move around and so. Oop.
Bye.
Them's the ropes. Ooh, that was cool because like you hit him and then you hit this little thing and then this thing went and hit him. That was dope. Yeah, and so. And so, like, let's see. So I just have a question for you, Dave. And I just kind of a curiosity. Now, you said you can't stand artosis.
No, I said I don't like Artosis.
Okay. I kind of am interested to return maybe our last 10 minutes to this discussion of commentary and how the game is discussed as a form of entertainment. And like, so I'm curious, what don't you like about Artosis?
His voice. I just don't like the pitch of his voice.
You just don't like the pitch of his voice.
Yep, that's literally all it is. It has nothing to do with his commentary style. The pitch of his voice just irritates me.
Oh, that's interesting. I was thinking because
his cadence is also kind of irritating, but it's totally just an affective response. It's a totally unfair thing of me to judge him for because there's nothing he can do about how his voice sounds, and his commentary is generally informatively fine. I just don't like listening to him.
Yeah, that's fine. Though,
What?
No. I was laughing at she keeps hitting you right when you do the Gordo thing, and then you get hit by the Gordo and the thing. And I find that to be funny. I find that interesting as like a topic of discussion, like what we don't like about them, and we totally often have affective responses that are like, oh, I don't like this thing about the guest, like their voice,
right,
or something. I hear that often, but I wonder I wonder how much, and I'm not mapping this onto you.
Just what you gotta do.
No, I'm still formulating the idea. I'm not like dancing around it. But I wonder how much of that kind of affective response, like I just don't like the timbre of the voice, yeah, you guys go ahead and play, can preclude, right, like women or people of color from being able to take like that kind of spotlight, right? Because like there can be an affective, like I remember the Jets game last year, Lions-Jets game. It was a double header on Monday Night Football, and so the Lions-Jets game had different commentators than the normal Monday Night Football, and one of them was a female. And I, being a Lions fan, I tend to like sit in the game threads and stuff on Reddit, you know, as I'm watching the game. Like there were quite a few commentators who were like complaining either about like the female broadcaster, basically to some degree, right? And like sometimes they would have what we might call a valid complaint, or at least present a valid complaint. We could argue it may not be in good faith because she's, you know, because they may be just trying to be covertly sexist. But they would say something like, you know, like, oh, like I think that like this, you know, this analysis isn't like really leading anywhere or something along those lines. But then other people just be like, I just don't like the sound of her voice, or something like that, right? Yeah. And so, to what degree, and this is just like affect in general can be so fucking awful, right? Because like that's like what economies of affect is all about, right?
Exactly.
I really recommend any audience members go read some affect writing. But how much like affect can also lead to kind of those kind of things. Not saying that you are, you know, being bad or anything. Related to Artosis, because I mean, I totally get, like, I like Artosis, but I totally get, like, the complaint about his voice, because he really, like, it's not just, like, his voice's timbre, it is his cadence, like, the way he chooses to talk is really, like, California surfer bras, like, kind of, I don't know exactly, but go ahead.
So, yes, I think that's an incredibly valid criticism to consider, and the fact that it is a tactic that is used exclusionarily. I think that the problem is, or that what ultimately comes back to for me is just that. All right, so this is going to be like kind of a weird personalized thing, but in addition to those other things about Artosis, which, like, he's fine. He's a good commentator. He knows his stuff, and I do like being a Californian myself. I think you'll also find it unusual that I really like Brian Kibler. For many of the same reasons I don't like Artosis. But the Artosis pylon I can just never forgive him for. Like, that's a particular meme in the community for me, and it's just like, going back that far at the end of the day, like, I don't know, dude just,
Well, I'm sorry. What about the Artosis pylon don't you like?
It's an embarrassment, and he should, be embarrassed about it for the rest of his existence.
He actually in a recent broadcast he called a pylon an Artosis pylon.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what does that mean? You don't like him though?
I don't know. I can't really explain it past that.
That's
For those of us who have no idea what that is,
Yeah.
what does that mean?
So it's a StarCraft 2 meme because basically in Control, rest in peace in Control. You were a great commentator.
It's true.
He died earlier this year, but he was another famous or like well-known StarCraft commentator. Sure. And at one point in StarCraft 2, there's 3 races, right? There's the Protoss, and the Protoss have to build these pylons, make basically an electrical field that powers their buildings. Mm-hmm. And good city management would say, have multiple pylons powering the same building, so if one gets destroyed, right, then it's still powered.
Right.
Sure.
And an Artosis pylon was a joke that In Control made, making fun of his friend Artosis, saying something along the lines of because if one pylon was powering a bunch of buildings and then got destroyed, that's an Artosis pylon. And so that's what he's referring to. But I don't understand why that leads to us not liking Artosis.
Leads to me not liking Artosis.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just using us in the inclusive sense.
Well, but it isn't in the inclusive sense because I'm very much in the minority in this instance.
I don't know who he is, so I have no opinion.
I have no opinion.
It's okay. It's just he's a commentator. He's like one of them, like in the StarCraft 2 community.
StarCraft 2 for me is so esoteric.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm more just interested in the affect of response of I don't like this. So how does that affect your affective response to this commentator? Like this meme around them, of basically making his name kind of synonymous with a failure or
because to some degree, and so I'm caught up with this sense of professionalism and expertise when it comes to things, and so the idea that Artosis is a guy who is by and large one of the most experienced and considered kind of highest experts of commentary in the StarCraft 2 community, and is a dude who is synonymous with really basic Protoss play, just feels weird to me. It makes me I don't know. I'm not sure I can put it into words thoroughly.
It's hard to talk about.
It just doesn't instill me with confidence or make me feel like his. I don't know. I'm not sure, and that's that. I don't think I'm being fair. I really don't. I think
that's fine.
I think I'm being really unfair to Artosis in that because I have such a broader feeling about him and his and his style. I've watched him stream a bunch, and I don't particularly like his streams. I've watched him play Hearthstone. I really don't like watching him play Hearthstone.
So to move it away from Artosis a little bit, which I asked the question, so I'm not saying. I'm not just.
No, I know.
But I'm just when we think of our affective response to particular individuals in the community, I think that's really important for the fighting game community for a couple of reasons. Fighting game communities are small, so there's more repetition of the same kinds of talent, especially in the broadcast group.
Yep.
Fighting games are 1v1, so the personality of individuals becomes much more pronounced. So when we think of Sonic Fox, right? If Sonic Fox was playing team games, I don't know if he would even be successful, right? No matter because he could be considered a very divisive figure, right? Because of his various traits.
Sure.
And so fighting games.
Nice.
Oh my! That was a real combo. That was a true combo. So great job. You found your main.
Yeah.
Oh, Joker is so cool. I love Persona 5 so much.
We're gonna have to talk about that sometime.
I usually when I'm working, I go on YouTube and they have a 10-hour Persona 5 chill music.
Oh, I love those.
It's just the I don't know the name of the track, but it's the track that plays on the background during the chill part of the game, and the soundtrack of the game is so amazing.
This is kind of out of the scope for Arena, but I'll mention it anyway since it came up. I'm really interested in ambience like that, as a thing, as a text study. because something about them has really caught fire recently. Like there's a 10-hour ambience like everything.
Yeah.
Every game, even like films, TV shows, like they're all over the place.
Yeah.
And I just find it really interesting that we're kind of like funding and functioning as patrons for like just something to have alongside us while we're working
Yeah.
that is related to what we enjoy playing.
Yeah,
or
and
watching.
it's also like for the background. Like I can't
Yeah,
work with
it's
like
just for
Twitch
background.
on, you know, like.
Yeah.
But I can work with 10-hour chill Persona
Yeah.
5 mix, you know.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. I mean, I've been doing a lot of like Dragon Ball ambience and
Oh,
yeah, it's awesome. And like Destiny, just so that it has like
that
the
makes
music
more
and the
sense
space
for
of
me
it.
than Dragon Ball.
It's just I find it really interesting as like a kind of like new form of study.
Ooh!
Ooh, that could have not
Oh
gone
my
well.
god, this game is on fire.
So, yeah, well, I'll let this play and then I'll make the last one. 200%.
Oh my god!
I'm pretty sure back throw would have killed, but I'm not gonna say it. It's so
This
hard.
is not the time. Just...
Yeah, it's not the time.
No!
Oh, nice!
Bravo,
That was
bravo.
awesome.
Boom. Very good.
So, as a closing thought, at
Oh, can't we
201.
play like? Oh yeah.
Okay, you and I can play one more, as long as you guys are okay with it.
You're gonna kill me so fast
Is
now
Cat's
because
Mustache
like
happening
it's
today?
time.
No, it's not.
Okay.
It's on hiatus. So, as a closing thought, do you want me to play my main? Or do you want me to...
No, play your main. I'm gonna.
Oh, let me turn myself off.
As a closing thought for you guys to discuss, I guess, as I play this game. Considering...
I know, Daniel, me too.
Because like one of the conversations I kind of wanted to have today, which we have had, was this conversation of moves and how we have a memory of the games that we play and how we kind of tell the stories of the games we play. And we've also had this conversation about affect of casters and of the people in the communities around games.
Mhm.
And I'm interested if casters are the people who are tasked to some degree with narrativizing, archiving, telling the story of a game. How do those two ideas relate to each other?
Okay. So I think that that's a really interesting like kind of way to think about that, because I completely agree with you that casters are sort of imbued with the task of decomplexifying and narrativizing the action of a game that's happening, especially very complex games that are happening like all at once. You know, I can't possibly keep track of what 6 people are doing on a team in Overwatch at the same time.
Sure.
And so a caster is going to have the responsibility of trying to be able to do that all at the same time. Kind of
This is
keep
what I'm
that-
talking about.
Kind of keep that clear.
Yeah.
And so I think that Disserto's idea of moves as like these kind of discrete, descriptive things that we categorize in our own minds, in our habitus, and then subsequently put out there as a way of like, you know, both engaging with the text, but also creating a taxonomy of how like the game functions and how we interact with
Yeah. I also find that to be like a really interesting, or I think we can apply a really interesting metaphor of that is the work of a historiographer.
it. Yes.
So you take things that are in this case things that are happening currently, right?
Right.
And you read them. You take the chronicle to use White's language. You take the chronicle and you turn it into a narrative with a very specific audience in mind.
Yes.
Right? And various audiences, right? Because a caster is at one time talking to maybe not pro players, or pro players that just currently aren't playing at that match. They're also talking to casual players, spectators that have never played the game, because that is a growing community, and people that have never touched a video game in their life but are watching on behalf of someone else.
Yep.
Right?
Really?
Because streaming
I guess
communities
I
and
was facing
spectating
the wrong
communities
way.
are constantly growing, and so the job of a caster is to both answer basic questions like, what is a meta,
Ah.
what is the goal
Okay,
of the
good game,
game of a match.
Nice.
At the
I'm
same
getting
time
better.
as they're
Yeah.
trying to,
You were learning how to play my CSS, right? That's
they're
part of
they're
They're
trying to
going to recover
demystify,
here,
like you
but,
said,
Yeah.
the specific things that are happening at a much higher skill level.
Yes.
So the difficulty of a caster, I think, is trying to parse out all of those audiences and all of those levels in
Right.
a way that doesn't bore one group or
Mhm.
exclude one group.
And I think it's very interesting that in most games outside of the fighting game community, casters do not tend to be players who are also playing at the highest levels of the game.
Mhm.
Because the breadth of knowledge that they need to be able to commentate on a wide variety of circumstances prohibits the single-minded focus necessary to be exceptionally good at a particular character, strategy, race,
Yeah.
group
Absolutely.
composition, whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's where we get the difference between maybe a strategy caster and a color commentator, right?
Right.
Absolutely.
One thing I'll note, just to like kind of exacerbate that point, is when we played both Smash and Street Fighter, the last time we played these two games, we did the old arena format where we spent half the time in the game and then half the time watching, like a thing. We had to slow the game down to like quarter speed for me to be able to like tell Kelly everything that was going on.
Right.
Like, because even though I could kind of process it really quickly,
Sure.
like
Yeah.
I could not at all speak
Right.
what was
Yeah,
happening.
Absolutely.
And so then we had like, so like that shows like as opposed to like a game like League where there are moments where so much is happening at a moment where like you can't possibly, right? And the same thing with Dota, right? There's that, and if you've read metagaming, you know, like there's that one moment they focus on the chapter on Dota 2 where it's like all these things are happening within the span of like 2 or 3 seconds, right?
Right.
And so I'm not saying that those moments don't happen, but there are also long moments in League or in Dota
Where
or
nothing
StarCraft.
or very little is going
Yeah,
on.
very little
Yeah.
of consequences happening, which allows the casters to create this narrative. Whereas
Yes.
constantly in fighting games, consequential decisions are being made every
Absolutely.
moment.
Absolutely. We talked about that a little bit last week and the week before, actually, with Rocket League, where there are. I mean, for the most part, these matches don't last long.
Mhm.
Even in Smash, where they do last a little bit longer than, say, Street Fighter, it's like 2 minutes, 4 minutes maybe
Mhm.
of just constant action. So there's no time to really like unpack context or create and generate narrative. Like if
Mhm.
someone's commentating Smash, which I've never seen but will definitely go watch after this, I can't imagine how you're choosing to privilege like one battle over another when they're constantly happening at the same time. So I mean, it's a really difficult job.
And also,
yeah.
sorry, and also like you have like these complex layers of information because, for example, those two
Absolutely.
players could have a rivalry. So those two, you have to draw
Yeah.
on like one player's
Yeah.
record or like
Yeah.
how that character has been played like historically. So
Yeah.
Yes.
there is
absolutely.
like the action, but also like the things that like the historicity of that.
Yeah.
action.
Yes,
it's not that the
absolutely.
Yeah,
action
to take
itself.
this to historicity.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and then to extend that even further and to actually look at practice.
Mhm.
I think what happens a lot in Smash is commentary actually gets, even though these people know what they're talking about very well,
Mhm.
oftentimes they can be reductionary commentary because there's so much going on. It's like information overload.
Right.
Like I think in particular, there's like a meme going around right now, which is called Game 4 Leo.
Mhm.
Because Leo is this like great Mexican player. I was trying to remember what country he's from. He's a great Mexican player, probably the best player in the world right now. And in a lot of the recent tournaments, he'll be down 2-1 going into Game 4.
Mhm.
And then he'll suddenly turn it on and just blow him out of the water in
Yeah.
Game 4. And so, when you watch commentators talk about Leo,
Yeah.
when it'll be Game 2, Game 3, they'll be like kind of normal commentary. Game 4, they just keep saying things like whenever he does something amazing, Game 4 Leo. Like they just say that, right? Like it's something like this heuristic shorthand
Yeah.
for like a whole host of like things that are happening,
That's
but they
so
don't know how to
interesting.
contextualize it, right?
Yeah. And that, so to tie that into like Overwatch League, which is what I'm more familiar with,
Mhm.
that's where external elements like the Overwatch League blog come in,
Yeah.
where they just
The
have
YouTube
like
channel.
and YouTube channels and streamers that comment on league matches and stuff like that, where it's like they can take a step away, pause the action, and say, when they say this, this is what they mean.
Right.
Right. So there's like layers to it, where in a live match, there's no way that you can spend the time to say, by the way, the reason we're saying Game 4 Leo is because of this.
Yeah.
Right. There's no time for that.
Yeah.
There's no place for it.
Mhm. Yeah, and so there's tons of different things like that. For instance, there is and like just I'll give a couple Smash terminologies to like kind of highlight how this kind of shorthand becomes so crucial to understanding the commentary in the game. In Smash Melee, there's a couple things. There's, for instance, a tournament winner, which is funny. You'd think that that would be a good thing. It's actually a terrible thing. It wins the tournament for your opponent. But that's when you're on the ledge and you jump off the ledge, because you have a lot of vulnerability when you do that.
Sure.
But it's a move people want to do. It's like kind of like an inbuilt kind of like, oh, like I'm not thinking I do a tournament winner, right?
Yeah.
And then there's like Ken combo, right? Because this player Ken did this combo a long time ago, and he was the best player in the world at the time, and it was like an amazing combo. So now, whenever anyone does that combo, it's called Ken combo. You know what I mean? Like, so like there's all these different little things that build up to the vast library of knowledge, right? The historicity, to take this to toes, that we then collapse into this particular broadcast.
Yep.
And I think trying to understand the relationship between the history, the collapsing, and everything, I think, is an interesting thing for you to talk about. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Thanks for joining us.